Good morning and welcome to another episode of Bible Stories with just a school pastor Bell. If you've been enjoying the content and if you think it's valuable, please would you comment, please will you subscribe, and please will you share. Let's share the word. And so this morning we're going to talk about the Gibeonites. It's a story found in Joshua 9 and 10, and it's a very special story to me because when I got married recently, the pastor who did our service, he used this story to highlight the nature of covenant. And it was pretty amazing to see a story like this in a way I've never seen it before. And so, let's dive in. So, Joshua and all the children of Israel, they are on the rampage. They've conquered Jericho, they've been defeated and conquered Ai, and now they're trying to go through the land, and they're gaining possession of what God promised them. Again, it highlights that God wants to give us huge and wonderful things. But we are not passive. We do not just receive. In fact, we need to be active in getting those things. We need to get up, get the army going, do the training. Isn't it amazing how we all want to be in that battle with David and Goliath? We all want to be there when Jericho's walls are fallen, and we want to experience these highlights we read up in the Bible. But are we doing the training that soldiers have to go through? The daily drills, the marching in place, the physical fitness, or the dirty side of war and the dirty side of getting ready for battles we seem to want to avoid. And spiritually speaking, if you really want to see huge growth and blessings in your life, are you doing the spiritual disciplines? Prayer, fasting, meditating, memorizing, personalizing. These are all techniques that we need to do daily in order to build up our inner man, to do the discipline. Paul says it quite well. He's put on the armor of God and he says, I discipline, I beat my body into submission, because he knows that the flesh is weak. And so I just want to highlight that yes, this battle is amazing that they've gone through, but victory only comes when you are doing the discipline. That's how you build up your strength. The daily disciplines. And so we see in the story there's this group of people, the Gibeonites. They come from a town called Gibeon, and now they've heard. Similar like in our last episode, how Rahab heard. Amazing how faith often comes through hearing. Now in the story of Rahab, she joined the Israelites and it was a blessing, and it was faith really produced a good fruit here. But here comes another aspect, and I want to challenge you guys to put yourselves in the shoes of the Gibeonites. Put yourself in the enemy's shoes. And so we read that God tells Joshua and the Israelites, don't make any alliances with these people. You're meant to drive them all out. This is your land. Don't share it, because maybe God knew idol worship and pursuing other gods would be a trap for the Israelites. And so we see a deceitful plan come in motion. So quick question before we get into it. What would you do if you were the Gibeonites? You live in the land that you know the Israelites are coming to possess, and you've heard that one of the most powerful nations in the world, the Egyptians, were overthrown by these nomadic people. then hear that Jericho, a fortified city with walls so thick you can ride chariots on top, comes crumbling to the ground by these nomadic people. You hear about the two kings when Moses was in charge and how they were overthrown. And you hear about Ai, another city. And so you hear that this is a nation on the rampage. What would you do? How would you ensure your own survival? Food for thought. And so we read in the story the Gibeonites come up with this plan. They're going to dress up in old weathered clothing. They're going to have, food that's going off, and they're going to approach the Israelites under the guise, under the deceit of being from a far away land, a land nowhere near to them. And so we see that the Gibeonites, they get their patched sandals on their feet, they get old garments and stale bread that's dry and moldy. And they went to Joshua in the camp of Gilgal and said to him, "We have come from a far country." And now I want to ask you, is it wrong in this case for them to come and plead in this way? What would you have done differently? Would you have been honest and come to them and just say, "You know what, we live in your land, but we don't want to die. Can we work something out?" Do you think God would have heard that cry? Very interesting. And I want you to think about it. What is the character of God in the story to you? Are the Gibeonites just people that are desperate to save their lives and there's no way out? And so they're forced to do an immoral thing of lying to ensure survival? Is that okay? Is it okay when your life's on the line to lie? Where do you stand on these issues? Food for thought. And so we carry on, and then I want to go to Joshua 9 verse 14, and it says, "Then the men of Israel took some of their provisions, and they did not ask the Lord for his counsel." They did not seek the Lord's advice. And that has often been held as the central mistake, if you would, that the Israelites make here, is they don't seek the Lord's counsel. And it's a fair point, and one that I think should stand, but I don't think we should spend a lot of time here. I think we should always endeavor to seek the Lord's advice, but I don't think that on every case. Is it wrong to show kindness when the Lord hasn't said so? That's a question you can beg to ask. And so, as much as it's apt that they should have sought guidance to find out where these people actually come from, to trust the God of truth, but they still showed kindness. And we know that from the promise to Abraham that God's plan is to bless all nations. Does that not include the Gibeonites, also known as the Hivites? I want you guys to really think about it. I want you guys to spend time here thinking, but if I was the Gibeonites, what would I be? In which situation? What would I do? And so we read that Joshua made peace with them, and he made a covenant with them. And this is amazing, because a covenant is more than a promise. It's almost like a contract, but so much more than that. And so they make a covenant with them and swore they won't hurt them, they won't harm them, and then it comes out later they were living in their country. So if you've made a promise, a covenant, on grounds that are false, that you've been lied to, what do? Does that make your promise void? I do not have to do what I promised because he lied to me. Sure, maybe if you're fighting for your rights, you could take that stance. But what does the Bible show us? An agreement made on false pretenses. And we see it's amazing. Joshua honored the covenant. despite its foundation, because he made the covenant with God. And we need to understand, especially in today's day and age, with marriages and the divorce rate and all that, a covenant ultimately is between you and God. If I promise my wife coffee in bed, I not only promise her, but I also promise God. Are you that serious about your promises? Is your word that important to you? Is your yes a yes? Is your no a no? And so I want to challenge you this morning in the story. Yeah, Joshua had a covenant based on false pretenses, but that didn't matter because his promise was with God and the Gibeonites. And I think we often hold God as a silent partner in most of our dealings with other people. And I want to encourage you guys, no, God is real and he is close and he is involved in every promise you make. And so we see in the story, the very next story, it's in the whole of chapter 10, and it's amazing because what happens is the other kings in the areas realize, whoa, the Gibeonites made peace with these guys, and Gibeon itself is a pretty strong city. We need to stop this. We need to attack Gibeon. And so what happens is all 5 other kings come and attack Gibeon. So Gibeon reaches out to their new ally, please help us. Do you think it would be easy for Joshua to be like, well, you lied to us. This is sort of God punishing you. Isn't that the attitude we take? When things start to go wrong, we're like, you see, I shouldn't have said that because look what God's doing. And so what does Joshua do? He's like, no, don't worry. We're on our way. We're going to come fight with you because that is the covenant we made. That is the agreement we reached. Not only won't we attack you, but we will help you in time of need. And so what happens is Joshua goes and fights 5 nations, 5 kings' armies. And it's one of the most wonderful stories. I love this story. And there's not enough time for them to get the victory. The day is running out. So Joshua shouts to the sun and he looks up and he says, stop, stand in place. We're not done until we get our victory. And I want to ask you, is that your attitude? When you are in battles, whether it be for yourself or for people around you that you have influence over, are you praying and fighting that spiritual battle until you get victory or until you get tired? I want to say that again. I want you to think about this. Are you fighting that spiritual battle until you get victory or until you get tired? It's a very important difference. When we read in the New Testament of the woman with the issue of blood, it was years. The Bible says years. But she didn't give up. She kept fighting until she got victory. And the stories are countless. And this story here in Joshua chapter 9 and 10, it says, Joshua commanded the sun to stand still that they may gain the victory. What is your devotion? What is your commitment to getting victory in your life? Where are you in it? The spiritual disciplines I mentioned earlier, are you not memorizing because that's effort? Are you not meditating because I just don't have time? What's your commitment looking like to victory? Are you pursuing God until you get victory and breakthrough? Or are you going to just pursue Him until you get tired? I hope you've really enjoyed this word, and I really want to encourage you guys, spread the gospel. Speak about Jesus freely. He's come to save every single one of us, and He loves you dearly. If you've enjoyed this content, please, will you share it on all platforms. May you be blessed, and may God bless you.